Hello everyone, welcome to sqadia.com. Today the topic of our lecture is internal examination procedures regarding the autopsy that we were discussing even in our previous lectures. Autopsy, as we define autopsy, it is a scientific procedure that is carried out under the law of the states, and it is for the protection of the citizens and for the identification of the prosecution. Now, the first section will be dealing with the incisions, the autopsy of the internal examination, the methods that we regard to while performing the autopsy procedures, and the types of incisions that we give in different situations. The second section relates to the body cavities and the sample collection in particular. Moving on, we'll be discussing the exposure of the body cavities and opening the thorax and how do we examine the abdomen. The collection of the body fluid samples will be discussed in the second section. In the third section, we'll be discussing the removal of the structures from the viscera and the neck structures. How do we remove the neck structures? The thoracic contents, the removal of the abdominal and the pelvic organs will be discussed in this third section. Moving on, in the fourth section, we'll be discussing the removal of the brain. How do we give the incisions to remove the brain? And what are the precautions and the considerations while we are performing the autopsy procedure for the removal of the brain structures? The removal of the calvarium is of high significance, and the removal of the brain will be discussed in detail in this section. In the fifth section, we'll be discussing the removal of the spinal cord. Now, there are two approaches when we are removing the spinal cord. There is an anterior approach and then there is a posterior approach. In the anterior approach, we are basically removing the vertebral bodies. And while we are dealing posteriorly, we are giving two sections to the laminas and approaching the spinal cord from that view. Lastly, we'll be discussing the examination. How do we examine this spinal cord after getting the samples and when we dispatch these samples to the chemical examiners for higher details to get more into the investigation. I hope you want to learn more about these internal examination regarding the autopsy. Do watch the other sections for this lecture. Thank you for watching sqadia.com.